Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Saturday, February 17th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Akron game in 196 days, the game against Michigan in 287 days, as we're waiting for spring football to kick off in just over 2 weeks at this point. We're getting close. This is prime time for some recruiting camps, high school camps to get a firsthand look at some of the future potential stars of the college football world. Marc Givler has been doing just that, of course, from BuckeyeHuddle.com. He was just down at the Under Armour Regional Camp down in Florida last week, had a bunch of really interesting updates for our subscribers at BuckeyeHuddle.com, and now we're going to be talking about some of that information here. Marc, let's start with what's the position everyone always has questions about on recruiting? Offensive line. They got to get more offensive linemen. You got to get better offensive. You got to get more out-of-state offensive linemen. Whatever it is, you got to start with the offensive line. So let's start with the 2026 offensive lineman, Champ Smith, one of the top offensive linemen in his class, and one that sounds like you were impressed with, and that he may be impressed with Ohio State.
Yeah, he has already visited twice, and he first of all was outstanding at the camp. I mean, he played right tackle, right guard, was one of the best guys there. I think the thing I liked about him beyond just his physical abilities is that you're kind of fighting for reps out there, and a lot of the young guys will go out there and they might lose a rep, and then they kind of do the what is it, the Homer Simpson back into the bushes and kind of take a little break for a few minutes, and that was not how he handled things at all. He took a lot of reps. He kept going out there. He won almost all of his reps, but even when he didn't, he jumped right back out there and was getting as many reps as he could against guys who were mostly a year older than him. So super impressed with him. As I said before, he camped with Ohio State last summer, and then he visited for a game in the fall. I believe it was Penn State, and he's got 3 more kind of tentative visits set up to Ohio State between now and the end of November. So he's going to come up for the spring game in April. He's planning to get to one of the camps in June at Ohio State to work with Justin Fry again. And then he and his family have the Michigan game scheduled for November already. They've got that penciled in. They don't want to miss that one. So I would say 5 visits in about 18 months is a pretty good indication that Ohio State's a very serious player here.
Well, and this is not a guy who's coming up from Chillicothe to make those 5 visits in 18 months either. So that's one of these watch what they do, not what they say kind of situations. Feels like what he's doing is certainly pointing in one direction. He's also, as you wrote on our board, developing, a pretty decent friendship with another current offensive line commitment for Ohio State.
Yeah, so Carter Lowe, of course, committed to Ohio State a few weeks ago. Their latest offensive line commit was at Ohio State the same day that Champ was last June. So they camped together last June and got to work together and work with Coach Fry together. And so they kind of, got to talking at that camp, and they've kept in touch, and now they're talking quite often. And obviously Carter Lowe has been even more aggressive since officially committing to Ohio State. So he's trying to get him up there, and it's an interesting dynamic. He's also the teammate of 2025 linebacker TJ Alford, who is going to commit somewhere here at the end of March, and Ohio State's on the short list there. So a lot going on at Vero Beach right now, and that's going to be an important school for Ohio State here over the next few months, for
sure. All right, let's take a little quick digression to TJ Alford, just because you brought him up. How big is it in terms of recruiting for Ohio State to have made James Laurinaitis, the other guy who used to play football at Ohio State, who's pretty good at recruiting, other than Tim Walton? The third guy, the other one, James Laurinaitis. How big is it to have him on the staff in terms of, TJ Alford and just linebacker recruiting in general?
Yeah, I think it's going to be great for linebacker recruiting in general. I mean, they've got a great list of targets right now, and they're definitely in the mix for 3 or 4 of them. And they've got Eli Lee obviously committed already from Ohio, but they've got some big national names they're trying to get, and I think this provides some clarity to all of them. But I asked TJ, got right to the point with TJ. I said, look, your decision's coming up here at the end of March. You have a visit scheduled to Ohio State a week before that. how important was James Laurinaitis' status in terms of how you view Ohio State and how you weigh Ohio State in all of this. And he said it was huge. He said, if he does end up choosing Ohio State, he would want James Laurinaitis to be there and be his coach. So they've got a great relationship, and I think that's a big boost for Ohio State to have some long-term stability and clarity there for a kid who's going to visit in about a month and then decide a week after that.
All right. So from one former Buckeye who is starting to really make a name for himself on the recruiting trail to another former Buckeye whose name is well known throughout the land. That is Brian Hartline. He's the wide receivers coach. And everyone just sort of at this point assumes, okay, which 2 to 3 5-star wide receivers are they going to get in this class? They just brought in 2 5-stars in the 2024 class. We got to talk about the 2026 class. 5-star wide receiver Aaron Gregory. He's another guy you saw down in Florida at that camp. What did you see out of him, and how are things looking with he and the Buckeyes?
Yeah, super early with Aaron, so you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself in terms of like, well, Ohio State's going to win this or Ohio State's in front or anything like that. But they've made a very good early impression on Aaron and his family. He also visited for a game in the fall. Got to spend some time with Hartline on that visit. He's trying to get back here for a spring practice or spring game, some point in the spring. He's working on scheduling that right now. Brian Hartline's one of his better early relationships. This is going to be quite a battle. Again, early 5-star kid from the South, all the Florida schools, Georgia, I'm sure Alabama once they get things stabilized. I mean, this is going to be a slugfest, but Brian Hartline has proven that he is capable of winning his fair share of those. So this will be one to watch. And I thought Aaron was very, very special on Sunday. Just a unique talent. I mean, 6'3", but can run routes kind of like a slot guy. Can go up and high point the ball. Catches everything with his hands. He told me he likes to kind of take things from Marvin Harrison Jr.'s game to kind of apply to his because they are of a similar build. I mean, so he is a Marvin Harrison, Justin Jefferson type of receiver, and I fully believe that's what he's going to turn into here in about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, those are not bad comps. Those are if you are a wide receiver, those are not bad names to have sort of in proximity to your own name. So in a 2026, so nothing imminent probably, and certainly not anyone you're going to see on the field at Ohio State the next couple falls. But that's okay. We sometimes get in on guys early and start talking about guys early because the calendar keeps kind of creeping up, so it moves. Seems like it's going earlier and earlier every cycle. So one last guy I wanted to talk to you about, and this is not someone who is at the camp, but with offensive line being a concern and sort of cycle after cycle at this point for Ohio State, defensive line has kind of been in the same boat. So that's why being in a decent spot with a defensive end like London Merritt in the class of 2025, pretty significant. Just let people know a little bit about London and his game, and then what you wrote about on the Huddle board at BuckeyeHuddle.com.
Yeah, London's obviously been one of their very top defensive end targets for a long time now. They've been recruiting him really hard for more than a year now, and he transferred to IMG this offseason, so he's going to get an even bigger boost in terms of the level of competition. He was already going against good competition there in the Atlanta area, but going to go up even higher now at IMG. Had a chance to talk to a couple IMG guys at the camp. Again, London was not there, but I talked to a couple of IMG guys who said he's been doing great. He's been really been quick to adjust and looking. They think he's going to have a huge senior year. But he's not 6'5", 6'6". He's more 6'2.5", 6'3", about 245. He's kind of a hybrid edge rusher. Strong as an ox, great first step, and just a guy who plays really, really hard, really physical. So definitely a guy they're trying to make a priority. I think Ohio State leads right now. He's going to make an official visit in the middle of June. It's like the 15th, I think, that weekend. He's going to make an official visit in the middle of June, but he's also working with Larry Johnson and his family on scheduling another spring visit, either spring game or spring practice. He's already been to Ohio State multiple times. So this is a guy, we're talking about how good the Midwest is with defensive linemen in 25, and that Ohio State's not going to need to go out there and get 3 or 4 guys from Florida, California, Texas, but there's still some guys nationally they have got a shot at.
All right. Well, we'll keep tracking those guys for 2025 and those guys for 2026, and probably going to start talking about 2027 guys at some point. I remember when Danny Clark committed for the class of 2017 back in 2013, and thinking, man, I'm at 2017. Oh man, here we're gonna have flying cars and be living on Mars, and here we are talking about people 10 years after that. Oh boy, we're all getting old. That's the big takeaway. That's one of the takeaways anyway. The other one is you should probably consider becoming a member of BuckeyeHuddle.com, because if you enjoyed this show, enjoyed hearing Marc talk about recruiting, well, guess what Marc does a whole bunch for our members at BuckeyeHuddle.com? Well, he talks about recruiting. Hosts a chat every Tuesday to answer pretty much questions about just about anything you'd want to ask him about. Buckeyes, national recruiting. If you want to talk about the Blue Jackets, he'll talk about the Blue Jackets with you. Deep sigh. But you can find him and all of our team of insiders at BuckeyeHuddle.com, where we cover the team, cover recruiting, cover X's and O's, make you a smarter football fan, let you know what you're missing out on, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.